The world is changing in many ways. We see population growth still driving many things. We see population shifts driving things even more. Urbanization is an enormous factor in any country in the world at the moment, but in many developing countries it is the primary factor that's driving things there. And on top of this, we have to cope with a changing climate, which means that for many people are realizing that the past is no longer a good guide to the future. Things are changing.
The Global Adaptation Institute, GAIN, along with its Council of Scientific Advisors, created the GAIN Index. The index is a navigation tool for private and public decision makers and investors. It is the world's first adaptation index to look at a country's level of vulnerability or exposure to climate-related and other challenges, as well as its readiness or ability to use adaptation investments effectively. The GAIN Index was created from an idea that began with the Readiness Matrix. This matrix illustrates the comparative resilience of countries plotting vulnerability against readiness. The matrix places each of the 161 countries measured in the GAIN Index in one of four quadrants: green, yellow, blue, or red. We'll start with an example of a set of countries that all started in the red quadrant. The red quadrant includes those countries that are highly vulnerable and have low levels of readiness. Select El Salvador, Peru, Vietnam, and Zimbabwe, and the year 1995. Then click the play button on the left. You will see how the countries move in the matrix during the past decade and a half. Zimbabwe remains in the red quadrant and moves farther away from a state of high resilience. Vietnam reduced its vulnerabilities and improved its readiness, moving into the yellow quadrant, representing a state of lower vulnerability but low readiness. By 2008, Peru moved into the blue quadrant, a condition in which a country's vulnerability remains high but is ready to invest in adaptation. And you will note that El Salvador moved out of the red quadrant into the blue quadrant and entered into the least vulnerable and most ready green quadrant. Beginning with the worldview, users can drill down to information for each country. Selecting Peru, the side panel overview shows Peru's ranking, score, and score trend. Peru's position in the GAIN Readiness Matrix in the blue quadrant is displayed as well. As you hover the mouse over the horizontal green bars, you can see the relative contributions of different components to the vulnerability and readiness scores. The graph shows the trend in Peru's GAIN Index score over time. Now, let's drill down deeper into the data. Selecting Peru's View Profile, we can view data and trends for each of Peru's vulnerability and readiness indicators. On the Peru country page, its GAIN ranking over time is displayed from the past decade and a half. While Peru's overall vulnerability has decreased, it still faces many challenges. Food is Peru's most vulnerable sector, and the food capacity indicator reflects the country's low agricultural, technological capacity. By clicking on the row for any indicator, we can view the trend over time, determine the data source, and see which countries share similar scores for this indicator. We can see the same breakdown for readiness by selecting the Readiness tab. Here, Peru has steadily increased in readiness in each of the three core components: economics, governance, and social readiness. For instance, Peru's monetary freedom has been increasing and is now comparable with countries such as Switzerland, France, and Austria. Selecting rankings from the menu bar shows a list of all countries ranked according to their GAIN Index score. We can also rank countries according to their vulnerability or readiness. Further, we can view country rankings in specific sectors and readiness components. In all tables, the countries at the top of the list are the least vulnerable or the most ready. Thank you for visiting the GAIN Index. To learn more about methodology and data, select the About tab at the top of the page. From there, you can click on the Global Adaptation Institute logo at the top of the page to navigate to the GAIN website for the latest news and insight, and how you can partner with us. to gain from adaptation. Thank you.